Okay, good morning. Welcome to Yoma 67, Yoma Samach Zion. Today, for the Derech Eretz part of Shir, I'm going to talk a little bit about something from yesterday's daf. The Gemara has a question. A woman, Isha Chachama, she said to Rebbe Lezer Hagadol, she asked him about the Egel Azav and why there were different misas, different death penalties for different people who were involved with the Egel Azav. He responded to her, Ein chacham al isha el b'palach. He said, there's only wisdom for women with a needle. Basically, she should be sewing instead of asking her questions about the Torah. It's very interesting. On Motzei Shabbos, my niece, my wife's sister's daughter, she's in 8th grade here in Israel. She goes to the local Beis Yaakov here. And she had a list of questions that she needed to know, either for homework or for her final coming up. Questions about the Gemara. She's learning Sefer Vayikra. And some of the questions were a little difficult for even a big Rav of a community who is 60 years old, let's say. For example, one of the questions was, what's the halacha of an asham, someone who brings a korban asham, sheneschapru ba'aleha, that I guess they lost it, and they asked her, what does it mean, the asham sheneschapru ba'aleha, and what's the halacha? What do you do? And that's if it's a lost asham, and you bring another one, and then you found it. I only know part of these things because I'm learning Maseches Yoma now, and it's talking about korbanos. But they also asked her, what's the pshat in Isser Chal Isser? This is a girl now. She's in 8th grade. This is not a boy learning in Yeshiva's Mir, who's 25 years old, in Avrich, in Isser Chal Isser. They asked all sorts of questions about a korban mincha. What do you do with the remnants of korban mincha of a Kohen? Full of questions. Where do you find this in the Torah? What's the halacha? Half of the things I had no clue what the answer was to at all. Some of them I familiar with because of Maseches Yoma. I was able to guess. I had the possibility whether it goes lamisa or it goes la ria, goes for grazing. I mean, it's a little out of hand. The Gemara here says that a woman shouldn't be learning Torah. She should be learning to sew. My wife told me that Sarah Schneer, when she first started the Beis Yaakov movement, that's where they taught the girls. They taught them how to bake, how to cook, how to sew. That's the Gemara. The woman's responsibilities when she gets married. She has certain malachos that she has to do. She has to sew. She has to bake. She has to cook. She has to do the wash, do the laundry, clean the house. Those are things a woman should be learning. It's gotten a little out of hand today, and for some reason, 8th grade girls in Beis Yaakov are learning Maseches Menachos and Maseches Zvach and Be'in. It's kind of crazy, in my opinion. I'm surprised no one said anything about this. I mean, my wife said the reason is to keep them off the street, but in general, I have this philosophy about all education, even boys. Here in Eretz Israel, Haredi boys don't learn chinuch atzmai system. They don't learn most of the secular subjects. Girls learn more of the secular subjects, not so much, but as compared to a regular school in America, a regular secular education here in Israel, you learn so many different subjects. The girls do, and the boys still learn subjects. They still learn things. Why are we learning all these subjects? Why do you have to know a Jewish person? We're not talking about a secular person here. A Jewish person, why does he have to know all these things about biology and chemistry? And I'm talking about Jewish education, modern Orthodox schools in America. Why do you have to know all these subjects? It's crazy. Biology, the basic biology, maybe basic chemistry. Maybe it's good to know what is an acid. These are derech eretz. These are things that you have to know about the world. But hydrogen bonds and carbon bonds. Some of these things are kind of crazy. Remember all these different structures. History is important to know. Jewish history is important to know, but in what depth and what things people just study. I remember when I was in school, I was a great student. I was an A student. I was valedictorian in my high school class, and I did pretty well in college. Also, I went to Yeshiva University. I graduated with like a 3.83 GPA. It was decent. It was pretty good. It was like an honor roll or whatever. What is it? Cum laude. I graduated. I don't think it was magna or summa, but it was cum laude. Basically what I would do is I would, cram the night. They had this room, study room, where they had the silent room and the room where people would talk. I go to the silent room. I would stay up before finals for I don't know, till like 6 o'clock in the morning. Maybe I'd get an hour of sleep or whatever, and then I'd wake up and take the final. Do very well. I crammed all this knowledge. I read the psychology books. I was majoring in psychology. I read the psychology books for 3 hours, for 3 times over. I try to make sure to read everything 3 times. That was my thing. And I remembered most of it. And then the second after this was over, I forgot it. He asked me today anything about psychology. I know almost nothing. I barely remember anything. Pavlov and his dog. Maybe that's what I remember, but I don't remember too much from that. And I graduated psychology. I have a BA in psychology from Yeshiva University, which at one point was one of the top 50 universities in the United States, I think. I don't know where they are right now, but I got a BA with cum laude, BA in psychology. I was becoming more frum when I was in college, so during my last semester, I loaded up on the easier courses. I already pretty much finished my major. I wouldn't even come to class. I would be learning Torah during those times. Some of the professors got very angry at me that I only came for the tests. I wouldn't come for any of the lessons, and they threatened to throw me out. People were telling me they were threatening to fail me. I called their bluff. I ended up getting B's and C's during that last semester. Pulled my average down, but whatever. I got into learning a little bit, and but some of these subjects, just to know so in depth, to know the basic subjects are important to know, but to know them so in depth, I really question whether you have to know Spanish or French. I took Yiddish in college. I don't know a word of Yiddish today. I got straight A's in that class. It's kind of crazy. They have to know all these things growing up, and besides the fact you don't have to know these things and you forget them all after you take the test, all the pressure that's being put on children to take these tests and to do well in school academically. You can't get into a good high school if you don't do well in elementary school. You can't get into a good college. You can't get into a good grad school. The pressure in the Jewish secular world, maybe in the secular world at large, it's such a pressure that to take these tests and to do well. It's so much pressure, and when do you get to enjoy life? You say childhood is pretty much the time when people remember the most is enjoying life, because they don't have so much responsibilities. They don't have a family. They don't have kids. They don't have to worry about earning money. But there could be much more enjoyment. I don't say you shouldn't teach subjects, and I think also that the Haredim should be taught more core subjects, but only the basics, and the basics of math and the basics of science and history, and I don't know if you need philosophy, but the only basic subjects. Most of the time, I say let boys, let them play sports, let them have organized activity. They shouldn't be on the street. They should go and they should have organized activities. Play sports. Let them play sports. Boys love to play sports. If they don't like to play sports, let them do some arts and crafts or dance or other things. Girls can do dance. They can do painting. They can learn how to sew. Do different things. Do different embroidery, and they can do different things. There's different possibilities. Organized activities. And you'll enjoy it. They'll enjoy it. They won't have the pressure of these tests so much. where I don't think too much is accomplished for these tests. You take it, you do well, you do poorly, you don't remember the next day anyway. So that's my time on education. Again, I believe knowing about this world is very important, but that's also what I'd like to say is that if you're going to teach education, at least teach the things that are core derech eretz. Teach them about companies. Teach them about difference between Procter and Gamble and Unilever. Teach them about the different types of cars. What's the difference between General Motors and Ford? What country produces BMW? Teach them about these things. Teach them about the world. Teach them about the capitals of the world. Everyone knows what the capitals of the United States that you get taught. What are the capitals of all the world? What's the capital of Seychelles? Is there a country called Seychelles? People don't know about it. It's a good resort place. What's the capital there? How many countries are in the world? Learn about climate, the different types of climates there are. Different types of mountain ranges, different types of, the highest mountains, the biggest rivers, the biggest oceans, how many seas, the names of the different seas. There's so many things to learn. You can learn about famous people, learn about movie stars, learn about the old movie stars, learn about Leonardo da Vinci and Raphael and how connected the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. No, I'm joking. Michelangelo, Raphael, Leonardo da Vinci. I don't know if they're related to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They got it from there. And there's so many important people over the years. Mozart. Learn about music. Music is something I don't think is taught enough. Mozart and Bach and Beethoven. These are important people. Learn about Lang Lang. There's a Chinese pianist, Lang Lang, very famous. Shares my last name twice in China. I think he's my age also. So learn about Lang Lang. Learn about the contemporary people, the bands. Learn about Bob Dylan, Robert Zimmerman, the Jew. Learn about these people. Popular culture. Learn about sports. Learn about the history of sports. Learn about Cy Young. I think he lost more games than he won, right? Learn about Naismith and the history of basketball, baseball, football, hockey. I don't know how many people enjoy hockey, but if you're not in Canada, learn about these things. These things are really important. These is derech eretz. And derech eretz is important to have a good conversation with people. It's important in Judaism to know the Torah, to understand derech eretz and Torah. These are things that are important to teach worldly subjects. There's so much stuff out there, different than the metric system and the standard system, and let's learn about the world like that. There's so many things to learn about. You can go on and on and on. And I will go on and on about these things. So learn the basic core topics. Learn about things that people want to know about, have to know about. Different types of wood, difference between particle board and plywood and pole wood and MDF. You have to know about these things. These are practical things to know about. And, I'll say this, graduate school is probably the most important out of all of them because you learn a trade, you learn how to do something. Or if you go to business school, it's also important. You learn practically how to earn a living. Liberal arts, you learn so many things, philosophy, different sciences. I don't know how much psychology, I don't know how much these things necessarily translate into good paying jobs or, things that are going to help you in life necessarily. But so that's my opinion of education. We'll start with the daf for today. The Gemara says, on daf samich vav on the bottom, Meikir Yisha, the Mishnah. Meikir Yishalayim hayu malavin oso atzukah rishona. When they used to do the Shir Mishaleach, the people of Yushalayim, they used to they used to accompany him. Their people, the honorable people Yerushalayim, Chashuva Yerushalayim, Rashi says, they used to accompany the Ish Iti to the Sukkah Rishon. Eser Sukkos Yerushalayim. So there were 10 sukkahs. These, you know what a sukkah is? From the sukkah. These transient houses, portable houses. They had 10 of them from station between Yerushalayim and the cliff, where they pushed the seer off. Tishim ris shiva umechza l'chol mil. It was a total of 90 ris was the amount of space between Yerushalayim and the cliff. Shiva umechza l'chol mil. 7.5 ris for every mil. Basically, so therefore, since there were tishim ris and there were 7.5, each ris was each meal was 7.5 ris. A halakhic mile was 7.5 ris. So it ends up being, according to Tanakama, there was 12 miles between Yerushalayim and the mountain. I'll call sukkah sukkah. Omrin lo harei mazon v'harei mayim. They would say every sukkah they would offer him food and drink. And people would accompany him from these sukkahs to sukkah. Except the last one, he wouldn't walk to him with the sukkah, because we're going to see, according to the Tanakama, it was a little more between Yerushalayim, the outskirts of the Beis Hamikdash, to the first sukkah, and from every sukkah to sukkah, and the sukkah of the cliff was a little more than a mile, so he couldn't accompany him the last little mile, because that would be outside Tchum. He would stand from far away and see what he did. What would the person Ish Iti do before he sent it off? He would cut in half a piece of scarlet wool. Half of the string he would tie to a rock next to the cliff, and half he would tie between the horns of the animal. And he pushed it backwards. The animal, the goat, would twirl back and go down. And by the time it got halfway down the cliff, it would already be dismembered into different limbs. This Ishiti would then retreat back to the last sukkah and stay there until it got dark. And it says in the pasuk that Ishiti, his begadim became tamei when he was Mishalech Oto La'azazel. When is it called Mishalech Oto La'azazel? The Tanakama says once he left the walls of Yerushalayim. Reb Shimon Omer, Mishas Dechiyaso Letzach. Once he pushed the animal off, then his clothes became tamei. The Gemara says, Tan Rabbanan, Eser Sukkos, V'shnei Masar Milin, Hayu, Divir Rabbi Meir. Like the Tanakama Mishnah. Rabbi Meir is Tanakama Mishnah. There were 10 sukkahs, and there were 12 milin. 90 ris, 7.5 ris for a mil. Which means that there were 11 stops. One stop from the walls of Yerushalayim to the first sukkah. Then 9 stops between each of the 10 sukkahs. The remaining 9 sukkahs, 9 stops. And then one more walking from the last sukkah to the edge of the cliff. So each one would be 12 mil total, and therefore it would be a little more than a mil, 11 stops. So 1 plus mil for every journey. How you divrei Rei Meir? Yehuda Omer Teisha Sukkos. He said there were only 9 sukkahs, Vasara milin, and it was a total of 10 mil. So therefore it would be 10 stops and 1 mil for each of them. He says there are only 5 sukkahs and 10 mil. He says it's possible to do this because even though you're not supposed to walk more than a mil, wherever you are, you have 2,000 amos. So you only have 1,000 amos to each side. If you're in the middle of the center of a city, so you get 1,000 amos to one side, 1,000 amos to the other side, a mil to each side. But if you set up an area of tchumen, so then you get an extra 1,000 amos to that side. So what they would have 5 sukkahs, and there would be someone coming from on your way, on your journey to the cliff, there would be someone put an erev tchumen between after one sukkah, so you get to travel from one sukkah to another sukkah. And therefore it would be able to extend 2,000 amos between each sukkah. You only need 5 sukkahs. The Kulani de Erev. Amar Rabbi Yossi Sachli Elazar Bni Mali de Erev Yicholani Lasot Afilu Shtei Sukkos of Asar Mil. And he says his son said he could even do 2 sukkahs and 10 milim because he would have. I don't know if this it's the article says maybe it was technically impossible, but it was practically impossible. But technically, a person from each sukkah, a person was already positioned in the sukkahs ahead of where the Ishiti was, so he can make an erev tchumen to meet him at the midway point between the sukkahs. So therefore, you can traverse 4 mil between the sukkahs. So therefore, the sukkahs you position, you have 4 mil between one sukkah to the second sukkah, another 4 mil between second sukkah to the third sukkah, plus 1 mil from the second sukkah to the cliff, and also 1 mil from Yerushalayim to the first sukkah. That'd be 10 milin. Kaman azah hadatanya chutz ma'achron sheben shalagia molotzach. El Omen Rakav Roas Masav. Come on, who's the one who says that he couldn't walk? It was more, the last journey between the last sukkah and then the cliff was more than a mil, and he have to go by himself because he could be Docha Shabbos, Docha Yom Kippur. Come on, Kiroi Meir. That's like Rei Meir. They couldn't escort him, he had to go by himself. Even though really not supposed to, you're supposed to fast on Yom Kippur. But because Ishiti, the Gemara really didn't say that he's allowed to break his fast, but apparently the Gemara assumes he could break his fast. The person never needed this. That if you have something, if you have bread in your basket, it's not similar. It's not similar. A person doesn't have bread in his basket, and therefore, because they offered it to him, so he was able to resist and not eat or drink, even though it was technically, seemingly halachically possible. Why do you have now this red scarlet piece of wool? The string was supposed to turn white when the kapara was achieved at the Sirla Azazel. So why Why do you have to tie half fit to the horns of the animal? So the Maharsha says, came in the mitzvah b'soyer, dilim akadim u'malbin u'misva daite. Maybe the kapara will be achieved before he actually pushes it off the cliff. He'll see that it's on the rock and it's white, and they'll forget to push it off. And the mitzvah of the day is to push it, the Sir Lazazal off the cliff. So why don't you just tie the whole string between the horns of the animal? Zimin the gamish daite. Maybe when it's falling down the cliff, it's going to put his head underneath its body, under his torso, and you're not going to be able to see the lashon of the horse. You're not going to see that it turned white. First, they used to do it. They used to tie it outside the ulam, the antechamber of the Beis Hamikdash, outside Hilbin. If it became white, the people in the Beis Hamikdash were happy. Lo Hilbin ayu atzevin. If it didn't turn white, they were sad, misbaishin. They're embarrassed. They didn't want them to be embarrassed, so they put it inside the antechamber. They would still stick their eyes in and try to see inside. So then they did it. They weren't tying it. They weren't hanging it in the base of Midrash. They did it right where the Ishiti was, half between its horns and half attached to the rock next to the cliff. Amar of Nachum bar Papa Mishum Lezer Akapar Rishona Hayu Kosh Lashon Zuhuris Al Pesa Ulam Mifnim. They were tied inside the antechamber. Became in Shagia Sawyer Lamidbar Hu Malbin. Once the seer got to the midbar, it would turn white. And they knew that the mitzvah was done. Pasuk says, if your sins were shanim, or were like scarlet, they'll turn white. Sounds like from this Gemara, Higiyah Midbar doesn't sound like it's pushed off the cliff. I think the article says it means Higiyah Midbar and it's pushed off the cliff. We'll have to look into that. Possible exploration for the Talmid Chacham part of this year. It would become dismembered, and the Avarim would come, the limbs would come off. Are those Avarim, are they mutter behana or not? Which is an Isser Hana. Rav Shmuel, Chanamar Mutarin, one says they're a Mutar, Chanamar Asur, Mandamar Mutarin, it says Mutarin, Bamidbar. It says Bamidbar, Midbar is a Makom Hefker. So just like Hefker is Mutar, so too, the Evarim are Mutar. Mandamar Asur, and Gzeira. It says Gzeira, Gzeira is a word which means uninhabited land. It also means Gzeira is a Lashon decree, which is a harsh thing to Asur. Mandamar Asur in Hai Midbar Mayav. Like, what does he do with the word Midbar? It says the word Midbar 3 times. The Rabbos no v'givon Shiloh ubeis olam. They tell you that Shiloh also was practiced not only in the base of Mikdash but also in Shiloh, and the Mishkan was in Shiloh, and also in Nov and Givon. What does he do with the word Gzeira? If it's really mutter. It has to be a steep cliff, not a slanted cliff. Basically, it means that Eretz Gzeira means the land where the animal would be split into pieces. Mizgazer will become cut up. You might think that this whole Sila Azalzel just makes no sense. Tamalomar Ani Hashem. Ani Hashem Gazarti Be'en Lecha Rishus Tahara Be'en. I made this Gezeira, that's Lashon Gezeira. I made the Gezeira, I made the decree. And you can't question it. It makes sense to Hashem, so it should make sense to us also because we believe in Hashem. Amarav, Mistabra, Command Amar, Mutarin, Lo Amra Torah Shlach L'Takal. Rav says, he decides the halacha must be that the Evarim are Mutter Behana because the Torah says, the Torah told you to do this mitzvah, Shlach La'azazel. People who don't know, a week later, a month later, they can come by these Evarim of the Shil Azazel and might get enough from them. So the Torah would never say Shlach l'takala, or people are going to make a mistake and use it and have a stumbling block and be over in this or no when they had no idea about it. It must be the Torah says it's mutter. Tana Rabbana Azazel shehei az v'kasha. What's the lashon Azazel? Shehei az v'kasha. The hill should be jutted out with pointy protrusions of rocks. You might think it could be done in inhabited land, in a place where people live. Tamalor Midbar. How do you know that it has to be straight down, like a straight down cliff as opposed to a slanting cliff? Tamalor Gzeira means it's cut out, meaning it goes right down. Tiny Idach Azazel Kasha Shabaharim. Azazel, different from Azazel means the most difficult of the mountains. Omer is Ele Aretz Laka. Again, it's a harsh land, meaning basically where it has jagged protrusions. Tan the very small Azazel Shemechaper Al Maisa Uzav Azal. It's something which is mechaper. It brings atonement for Maisa Uzav Azal, where Malachim that came down in the beginning of the world. With Mizana with Benos Sa'aretz, it says in Bereshis, Uzav Azal, which these Malachim that were Yorei Min Hashamayim, they were Nitkal in Arayos, they were over Arayos, so to Mechaper on Arayos of Klal Yisrael, that's why you do La Azal. Tana Rabbanim, Mishpatai Tasu. Dvarim, what does it mean, Mishpatai Tasu? Even if they weren't written, it makes sense they should be written. It makes sense. Any logical person would say you shouldn't commit avodah zarah or do arayos. Or kill, begezel, and stealing. It's logical. You shouldn't steal from people. You shouldn't curse God. As chukos as opposed to mishpatim, are things that the Satan Yitzhahara tells you it doesn't make any sense. Eating pig is levisha shana, is that you can't wear shana. Is chalitzas yavama. That you do chalitza to a yavama. The way you do it by taking off the shoe and spitting in a v'taras mitzora. The way a mitzora it comes to tara, there's a lot of different things with the birds and sprinkling of the blood on the fingers. V'sira mishtaleach. And the whole concept of the Sira Mishtaleah, Washem Atomer Maiseto, and you might think they're meaningless things, they're worthless, they don't make any sense. That's why they're called Chukos. I engraved them, I made them, I engraved them, and you can't think otherwise about them. You can't think badly about them. The trust in Hashem. Emasai Metamim Begodim. Tana Rabbanim, Meshalech Metamim Begodim, Ena Shaleach as a Meshalech Metamim Begodim. It says Hamishaleach in the pasuk, the person, the Ishiti, who walks with the Sir Azazel, so his begun become tamei. But the people that accompany him, that are malav him, they don't. Their begun don't become tamei. You might think his begun already become tamei once he leaves the walls of the Azara, the base of the Megdash. It says ha mishaleach to tell you that he has to start actually on his journey. If it would just say Hamishaleach, you might think that it only becomes Tameh is begotten when he gets to the cliff. Talmud Lomar, the Hamishaleach. The Vav tells me that it's Marabeh that even before that. Hakes, once he leaves, the walls of Shalayim is going to become Tameh. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi Omer Azazel v'chibes. It says in the pasuk Azazel, and then it says the word v'chibes next to it. Tell you that once he gets to the cliff, then it's begun to become tamei, even before he pushes it off. Rabbi Shimon Omer, you read the pasuk together. When you throw off the sawyer, then you have to wash your clothes, meaning you're begun to become tamei. He throws it headlong, he throws it off the cliff, and then he's begun to become tamei. Well, that will conclude this year for Yoma 67. Be sure to tune in for Yoma 67 Talmud Chacham edition. And be sure to like and subscribe to my channel. Hope you enjoyed this year. And have a good day. Keep in touch. Bye.